This is the month of March, and we are going to talk about the beauty of the Temari. And the Temari, the word, if you break it down, te means hand and mari means ball, so it means handball. And years ago, the Temari was a Japanese folk art craft, where really it was the optimum recycling event, where they would take old kimonos and take them apart, wad up a little wad in the middle, wrap it with the fabric, like the slip or whatever of the kimono, and then they'd take all the threads apart of the kimono and they'd wrap the threads around to make a beautiful ball really tightly, right? Well, as the years progressed, of course, as things often do happen, now the Temari is a very fine art form, and you wouldn't want to just play ball with your Temari because they would be very beautiful and take a long time to make. So I would like to personally thank my friend Betty Johnston. This is just a little bit of her collection of Temaris that she has. And so thank you, Betty, for loaning us your Temari so that we could enjoy the beauty of them. But Temaris, of course, years ago, sometimes mothers would wrap them and put a little, some beans or rice or something that would make a little noise like a rattle inside of the Temari as a rattle. And then the smaller ones like these that have a little cord on them, or maybe even a tassel or bell, girls would tie these onto their purses with their kimonos. So mothers would make them for daughters. So I asked several of my students, and they said yes, either their grandmother or some other relative made them some Temaris. But most of the people I've talked to have not ventured into making them themselves. But I do have a book that Betty has, and she's actually made several Temaris herself, and she said, yes, I wouldn't play with them because they take a long time to make. But the key in the Temari would be, and I'll show you this one, is that you find the meridian point that goes around the circumference of the ball. And first of all, you wrap. You might start with a styrofoam ball, or you might start with a wad of fabric and cover it really tightly until you had a nice tight ball. Then you would wrap it with thread, wrap. You'd wrap it with thread, and get a nice ball shape. Then you would get this meridian line on there, and then you would put a pin in the North Pole and the South Pole, and then you would start marking all your east, west, and all your different points with pins, and then you would start wrapping the fabric or the thread, either embroidery floss or pearl cotton or whatever you're using, or a combination, around the ball. And then once you got your design in, sometimes you go back and do some additional embroidery or additional stitching onto the design. Like, for example, this one. Wow. Is last month we talked about the Hina Matsuri, which is the Emperor and the Empress doll. Well, this ball, you can see that it's been wrapped with pink thread, and then gold has been wrapped around to get all of the points. And then once that is on there, then they started embroidering the design on top of that. It's just beautiful. So this is the Empress, and then next to her is the Emperor. And then I was gifted by Betty this one quite a while ago. It's the Red Crown Crane, and we featured that when we featured the Red Crown Crane a while back. But you can see how there's a meridian line, and then there's all these lines that go through, and then all this embroidery that goes on top, and then creating this beautiful Red Crown Crane on the top of it. So you can do designs like that, but most of all, they're geometric shapes and patterns, and they can be as big as that one, or as tiny as that one. Betty also had some furoshikis, which are these wrapping cloths, and you can see on the wrapping cloths the designs of the little Temari balls on them. As well, I have a little washi paper box with the Temari on them, and a postcard with Temari featured on them. So there's lots of variety of Temari, and they're quite lovely and beautiful, and can be done with all kinds of threads and different kinds of fibers and fabrics. So enjoy the beauty of the Japanese Temari. It is a Temari in that the cord wraps around it, but it's actually been tucked in with a different technique with different fabrics.
It's like a quilt.
Like a quilt, and then you just tuck it in, piercing it into the foam. Then you wrap the cord around with between all of the where you've tucked it in, which makes it really kind of like a Temari, but it's not officially a Temari because it's fabric punched in. It's a different art form, but it still is a ball and it still has the string around it, so we included it in our Temari display. Today, because of the Temari as our inspiration and our cultural beauty feature, it's the string wrapped around the ball, right? So today we're going to use, you're all going to get 8 pieces of pussy willows. And the pussy willows, when they're nice and fresh, are flexible, right? So we're going to do the heated thing that I do when I breathe on them, and everybody likes to laugh at me, but take your thumbs and your fingers and just press from the back, and then you're pressing on the front to hold them. You will lose a few of the little catkins, so not to despair. We're just trying to get, now look, see how much I've made an arc with that. So what we're trying to do is make 3 circles out of our pussy willows, and we're combining the 2 small ones because it's less expensive to do it this way rather than to use large, big ones. So we're going to heat treat and steam. All right, until we get a nice curve, right? Just a little bit more. Then I provided everyone, you can use floral wire, but this is a paper covered wire. It comes on a spool. It usually comes in green and this tan color. I was hoping for brown, but they only had tan, which is close enough. It's wire, so I cut it with, don't cut this with your flower cutters. I already pre-cut them, so you will have 3 of these already pre-cut. So what I'm going to do then, make sure your hands are dry when you use this because there's only paper covered on this wire, and if you have wet hands, the paper will come off. So you're going to make a little, what I call a shepherd's hook on the end. You're going to about 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches of each one. You're going to wrap these around each other at the ends, at the tips, all the while I'm losing catkins. But I'm going to take this little shepherd's hook, place it right there before the tip of that one that I joined and wrapped, and then I'm just going to wrap this around. Not too closely, but in a little bit wider form so that I can come back around it with the little shepherd's hook at the end. So once you get your loop done for your heaven line, all right, so you're going to make 3 of these just like this, all right? Now I already had 3 already done, so I'm going to pull out the 3 that I had finished. Then you're going to very carefully, you always want your heavy stems, the point to be towards the center of the kenzon. So you're going to take your cutters and you're going to cut it so that the point is facing the inside of your kenzon, and the same on the other side. And then you're going to slit up the stem with your cutters, just a 1/4 inch or so. And then normally we put the flowers on the inside of the kenzon, but today you're just going to, just like imagine your baby finger or a 1/4 inch, you're going to place the pointed part into the east side, and then you're going to push it down and out towards the outside edge. You have this tension going because it's round and it's connected and it's flexible, but you're going to push it in, the point towards the center of the kenzon, and then you can kind of hear it and feel it, and then you're going to push it out to the outside edge, and that's going to make your loop for the heaven line. All right, So I'm working backwards. Wait a minute, I'm going to try to get this in here. So there we go. Okay, so I'm looking at the front, and I'll turn it around when I get that far. All right, so then we're going to do, you're going to make a second one, and you're going to put it behind, and you're going to put it in front of your heaven line. So the heaven line goes east and west in your design, and then your man line, you cut 3/4 of the height. You want it shorter, 3/4 of the height. So this is heaven. We are made in God's image, but not God. So here is the man line, or the woman line. And then the last piece you're going to do is even smaller than that, and that's going to go in the back. And you're going to just place this in the back to give depth. And again, all placed on the east and west side of the kenzan. But you point it in and pull it down. Point it in and pull it down. And that forms, so I'm turning it around. Now you're looking at the front. Okay? So here's the tie, the heaven line. Here's the yo, the man line. And here's the in the back. Now, we're going to use Asiatic lilies as the main flower, but I'm going to give you a little demonstration. So, your lilies, when they bloom, they'll have the little stamens will be pollinated inside and will get powdery, and that pollen can get on clothes, especially if you're wearing light colors. So I have tissues on your table. So what I recommend is to take a tissue, grab it in the middle, but leaving some space with your fingers. Just reach in there, grab all of the stamens together at once, and gently pull up and out all the stamens in the tissue. Now, if you should happen to miss, one falls off, a little powder, a little pollen comes on your leaf, you just take regular Scotch tape, or if you should get it on your clothes or a tablecloth, you just take the Scotch tape and you can roll it if you want, or just leave it like this, and you just simply press on that pollen and it will come. I'll just show you on here. You can just, now I got a whole thing, but the pollen will just show up on the tape. So actually it lifts off beautifully and no trouble, okay? So you want to take out, when they bloom, you want to be sure to take out those little bits of stamens. So now I'm going to show you the rest of the design.
Would that make it last longer if you take them out?
I don't think so, but here's what I do recommend. For this particular arrangement, you use ice cubes to water your flowers. So when you see the water level going down, or just you've already got your kenzan covered but you need a little more water, don't just get water from the tap and pour it in there. Go to the refrigerator, freezer, get some ice cubes and put ice cubes in there and get the water level up, because the cold water will keep these longer. So try to keep them in a cool place. It's still winter, we still have the heat on, so try to keep them not near a vent, not near a place where there's a lot of airflow, because it'll dry out the flowers and they'll open up and they won't last as long. But so that being said, they're still beautiful, aren't they? And as the flowers start to fade, so you're going to try to get the biggest look of color right in the center. And you're going to, we have no extra foliage today, so you want to keep the leaves on, but if there's any leaves touching the bowl or in the water, you take those out. You'll cut another lily and you'll place it very closely, but just slightly below the other one. So they're in really, they're going to be in a circle pattern. So we've got these loops going, these threads of the Temari wrapping around. Okay, we've got the heaven line, the man line, the in the back to give depth, and now we've got the lilies in. And the next thing we have is a bunch of statice, purple statice. You're going to just take it and you're going to group it in a nice little grouping, and you're going to then take and give it a cut. If it has a few extra leaves that are falling off, you want to take those out. Now I'm going to take off this last leaf here, and then I'm going to place these in like a bouquet. I'm just going to place them in, press them in, and pull them forward so that I have a grouping of purple color right in the front. And then we're going to use our baby's breath. Now, sometimes the baby's breath has a broken stem. It's kind of weak. It's broken there. So we're going to go and cut that off. I'm just going to use these two together in a grouping. And I want them to be kind of between the height of the yellow and the purple. So I'm going to give them a cut there. And I'm going to see if that fits. Nope, it's too tall. So I need to cut it a little bit shorter. If you find your stem is very thin, take a bigger stem, put it together, and take floral tape and tape it so that you get some strength going so that they're not so unwieldy. I think mine will fit in there without any extra taping today. But that goes in the back. And then the last two pieces you'll have are loose pieces that are not a loop. And you're going to take them and you're going to place them. You don't want them, and you want to curve them just like the other ones. So don't leave them straight. Make them curve, because our eyes are just moving around the design. So give them some motion, give them some fluidity, and then place in, again, cutting your angle so that the point is toward the center of the kenzan. Putting these on the outside edge. You can put them anywhere you want, because this is really kind of freestyle today. So I'm going to place this bigger one towards the front, like so. And then I'm going to place this smaller one in the back, like so. And you kind of could imagine that the line will continue in your mind's eye. This line will intersect at some point, making a circle. So we have Ty, the heaven line, man made in God's image but not God, and then all this beauty here is the earth in the back to give depth, and then these two pieces to just give your imagination. Yes, these are going to connect at some point. So enjoy the March design with Pussy Willow and lilies and status and baby's breath. Lose your
ability to move it.
You lose the ability to fan out in space. That's
I thought about that right away when I saw it.
I had several people who brought those, and it was a problem because they couldn't get them to bend down because they were just too close to the edges of the kenzan. So it is what it is. So.